Oh, what is up, everybody? Hope everyone's having a good Sunday night. The action is beginning for free agency, and we got a great show for you tonight. Joining me is Don, our social media manager at Do Champions. We'll be discussing NFL free agency rumors and what's next on the NFL calendar. And then we'll finish off our series on NFL free agency focused on the Buffalo Bills targets at wide receiver, cornerback, and safety. We'll continue that deep dive that we've been doing the last few weeks. Last week we talked about DNs and D tackle free agents and trade targets. So make sure you check out that episode if you haven't seen it. And then tonight we're going to cover wide receivers, cornerbacks, and safety, free agent and trade targets. And then obviously we'll go over some of the news that's happened today. So stick with us. We got a great show for you tonight. And let's get it started.
Come on, man. Only on Do Champion Network.
Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Check that in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need. Everything you need. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like it, you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like it, you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Jake pen in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need. Everything you need.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I'd like to say a big thank you to our show sponsor, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Tree Farms, for supporting us all season long. It's sponsors like them that make the show possible. We use it to be able to access data and pay for streaming platforms and trips to go to Bills games, and then also some of the off-season events like the Senior Bowl, NFL Draft Combine, the NFL Draft. So we really appreciate our sponsors and thank you for supporting us. Quick message from our network sponsors, and then we will get right into the show.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, well, let's welcome our guest for tonight. It's Don. Don, thanks for joining us. Don is our social media manager at Do Champions, and he might be my cousin as well. But Don, what's up, man?
Not too much, man. It's been a wild Sunday in the NFL.
You know, who thought we'd have this much to talk about tonight, right? I thought we were just going to have a little sleepy episode.
All right. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to come back from vacation and be able to relax a little bit and unpack and unwind. Apparently today was the day the NFL decided to drop bomb after bomb after bomb of news.
Yeah, it's been a little interesting this pre-free agency period, whatever you want to call it. We knew this free agency class wasn't like super deep with a lot of big names, a lot of aging veterans, but I'm not sure I've seen this many teams not only re-sign like the mid-tier guys so quickly, but also some of these trades that we're seeing too for guys that like are older, like not still prime guys. Like usually you see that a little later. So I think things are going to really heat up tomorrow with teams kind of panicking, like left without a chair, needing guys. And, that first wave of free agency might be a lot spicier than we thought, or you might see some teams not wanting to pay the price tag or see the sticker shock for some of the early free agents. What have been your thoughts so far, pre free agency period here?
I definitely agree with you on the just spiciness of the last week, really. Uh, Whether it's trades, guys are getting re-signed, extended, asking for trades, and then getting extensions from the teams that they wanted to get traded from. Um, I think there's been a lot more of that this year. I don't remember it being this frequent, and maybe that's potentially due to the fact that maybe we're less likely to see some guys get cap casualty cuts. Like maybe the NFL, the prediction is that the cap casualty guys aren't going to be as pronounced as in previous years. And
Yeah, I mean, you think that has to do with just the cap in general, how it's gone up so much the last 2 years?
right?
Is it kind of adjusting to that? Mid tier and lower tier guys now are able to be kept and to be signed instead
Right.
of previously. You had to kind of let those guys go, right? At least test the market.
Yeah, I think it feels like we're past that. I also think that there's a lot of parity in the NFL.
Yeah.
And these guys are either getting ready to hit free agency and realizing like the teams that are out there that might potentially want them. Like, yeah, there's the tampering period over the next 2 days, but they have their feelers out there. They know who
Tampering's already happening.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe they're just realizing the market is just not what they think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Stafford, for example, when they let him go test the market, and he went right back to the Rams.
Well, the report was that he was getting offered more, but obviously he was going to lesser teams. I think that happened a lot. I mean, we saw multiple guys saying, "Oh, we want to join contenders. Oh, we want to join contenders," and and then you see Myles Garrett go right back, and then you see DK Metcalf, who we're going to talk about, go to a cold weather team after saying he wanted to go to a contender and a warm weather team. He went to a team with no quarterback, and he went to a cold weather team. So I think if anything I learned this period right now is money talks, man. It's all about the money and what guys get paid. It has very little to do with the situations, and I think that was the Stafford situation. I think he just wanted to get what he thought he was worth from the Rams. I don't think he cared about getting the most that he could possibly get. But I don't, he didn't want to, play on I think it was under $30 million deal he had. So,
Right.
yeah. And then I think Geno's the other interesting one. He reportedly was offered 40 to 45 million from Seattle and said no. So I don't know if there might have been something going on in the background. I know he was not happy with the offensive line they put in front of him, and how the season ended, and maybe that had something more to do with it. He knew he was going to get paid regardless, and but that was a big trade for me. You want to get into the Billsy news items first before we dive into the rest of the show here?
Yeah, let's get after it.
All right, well, first up, if you've been living under a rock, you might not have seen this, but it was about an hour or so ago, maybe an hour and a half ago. Josh Allen and the Bills reached an agreement on a record-setting 6-year, $330 million contract. The record-setting part is the $250 million guaranteed. It's the largest guarantee ever for an NFL player. I think the previous was Deshaun Watson at $200 million. Allen had 4 years left on his deal. But the Bills still rewarded him with their franchise quarterback with a new benchmark. So that was according to Adam Schefter. I want to see the details of this. I haven't seen the breakdown. It might take a little while to get the breakdown of the deal. I don't know if this is now making it a 10-year deal or was this just adding on to the already existing deal. So was it 4 years and now it's 6? Is it 8? I'm not sure. I really want to see that breakdown. But he's definitely not going to be the highest paid quarterback on a per year basis. Dak got $60 million. So according to just what we're seeing right here, at $330 million, 6 years, that's not going to make him the highest paid player. So I'm interested to see how that breaks out.
The spot track breakdown is not out yet, but the way that they have it broken down from a year is that it's just 6 years from now. So this keeps it on the bid.
Okay, so it's basically 2 more years, and
Two more
it's
years.
it's $55 million, contract. If you look at what it's worth, which I thought he was easily going to be over 60 million a year. Now we'll have to, again, I think that's more the guarantee, like you and I talked about. They could have made this a 4-year, $250 million guaranteed deal, essentially. And that would have made more sense because, $250 million over 4 years is going to get you over $60 million. So maybe that's what happened. But again, like, we got to see the details. But I don't think the sticker shock is definitely not there for Bills fans. I mean, this isn't anything crazy. Beth, thanks for stopping in. Yeah, I totally agree. Josh deserves it. Extends him through 2030, $55 million a year. Yeah, like I said, I thought he was going to get over $60 million a year. So I really like the deal. I understand it from Josh's perspective. He needed to get a pay raise. We had talked about it earlier in the offseason that he was either going to get one this year or next year. I thought he might do it next year, but if he's going to come in at this dollar, it makes sense to do it now for the Bills, because if he waits till next offseason, there's going to be guys at 65 million or above. Mahomes is going to be up there as well. He's going to get his deal up. So I think it makes sense to get it locked in now. I don't think Josh was trying to top out the market as far as per year. And I think it makes sense to go after the guaranteed money. I'm not worried about giving him $250 million guaranteed over the next couple of years. What's your thoughts, Don?
I mean, I love it. It's hard to say he's not taking a hometown discount. I mean, I think he kind of is.
Right, I agree with that for sure.
Comparison to the rest of the league, and I think that's kind of been the what Bean has been pitching to the guys that he's re-signed or extended so far this offseason. Like, Shakir took a deal that was surprising to us. The Greg Rousseau deal, I don't even think he's in the top 20 highest paid defensive ends.
I don't care what anyone says. That is a discount. Like, it's good for Greg. Like, he got his money and it's good for him. But that's a discount for where he ranks 100%. In a lot of metrics. Bernard too. I think that's a discount. You see some of these linebacker deals getting done, and I think he's right in there. It might be like even money, but man, the trajectory he was on, coming off of the 23 season, he could have made way more money if he said, I'm going to bet on myself, and then had another, Pro Bowl, all pro caliber year. So yeah, I think Josh is in the same line. Like, he reset now the guaranteed money, but he's definitely not resetting the AAV, and I think that is great. I mean, I love to see that. I mean, at $55 million, he's tied with Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, and Joe Burrow.
I mean,
right, and then Dak's above them. So I mean, really, he's tied for second, but really it's fourth or fifth already.
And I think we're looking at two more guys that the Bills kind of have, Bills fans, Bills Mafia have their eyes on this offseason to get extensions. One is Benford, who is very much so deserving.
For sure.
And then we'll yet to be seen if he takes a hometown discount. And then the guy that's kind of been all over the news is James Cook. Is he going to follow suit with these guys, or is he going to demand his money? And that's yet to be seen. So
yeah. No, and what's your thoughts? I mean, we can get into it real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it because we got a ton of stuff to go over this show. But I mean, the Benford thing's not surprising. I kind of thought he would be the hardest one to sign. I think it's trying to figure out what his value really is, and I think his camp might have trouble trying to figure out what his value really is.
Yeah.
He's got a year left, and so there's no problem with him saying, I want to wait a year and see what the market really shakes out to be. There's no problem with players doing that and playing another year to test out, to bet on themselves, right, and try to up the dollar. I don't have any problem with doing that. As long as the player's okay with that and they're not talking about, my contract or why I'm not getting paid, and they just go out and have the best year possible, then great. Go have a great year, Christian Benford. And then, if you have another top 5 cornerback year, like, then we'll talk about paying you, $25 million, whatever, it costs then. And I'm okay with that. But I thought that one was going to be a tough deal to figure out. And the main reason why too is because there's no cap savings in signing Christian Benford to an extension right now. And that's what the big thing for me is there's no benefit to the Bills right now to get it done. And for Christian Benford's sake, he can say, I'm going to bet on myself. Now there's a lack of security there, but they could wait and do this deal after the draft, before camp, during camp. Like, that is a deal that I wouldn't be shocked happened in the summer or during camp, right? Like,
Yeah, they could very much figure out who their CB2 is going to be and then sign him to a
right.
deal.
It doesn't save him any money to sign him now. So
No,
there's just not a
not
rush
at all.
to get it done. I wouldn't. There's other. You saw how. I mean, the Bills are by far the most proactive team right now. They've signed
it's not
signed the
close.
most guys so far, and I think that's where Bean's focused is, and I'm okay with that. Like, there's no reason to get a Christian Benford deal done right now. No, I agree with you, Steve. I think that's why I'm saying I think the deal, if they want to get it done, is going to get done in the summer or in camp. We've seen Bean do that, where he'll make deals during camp. There's just no reason to get it done right now. There's no cap savings to be had, and so there's no reason to get it done right now when they got to work with other guys. Like, there's more pressing needs essentially right now.
Yeah,
So that's all it is. It doesn't mean he's not important.
Right. To put that into perspective, like Benford's cap hit this year is $3.31 million. It's nothing. If they obviously they're not going to cut him. There's no reason to extend him. Right. That doesn't do any. Well, they could extend him now, but it doesn't make the cap.
Doesn't
hit
save
lower
the
this year.
cap. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And if it is, it's not that much. Like, they're not going to save that much money on the cap.
So similar to talk about the other guy left, right, is Cook. Cook's the same thing. His is 5.6 million. They could save a little bit there, but not much. And so I think that was part of the waiting too. They can also say, like, hey, you want to see what the market's like. Let's wait. Let's wait and see free agency. Let's wait and see who resigns. Let's see what the dollar amount is, and then we'll talk about it. Maybe
Right.
we'll come to a deal. If we don't come to a deal, then he still plays on 5.6 million, which is a significant raise on what he's been playing on, and then he can go test the free agent market. But I'm not surprised with the Cook thing, because the Bills don't gain anything by rushing to sign Cook faster, especially if his number is 15 million or whatever, like he said it is.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
right.
wait and let the market dictate what his value is, and then the Bills can decide whether they want to pay that. But you saw Aaron Jones sign today, and that doesn't move the Cook needle at all. Like,
No.
so
2 years, 21 million or something.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's still the number one for a lot of us. I think Trey Hendrickson was always been the most realistic and the biggest fish out there that is realistic. Can is it going to happen? I'm not sure. I think there's other teams that could pay better capital and have the cash. So, the Redskins, the Colts, there's some other teams too. So I think that's what's tough is, do the Bengals want to do business with the Bills? Are the Bills willing to overpay? Probably have to overpay compensation wise. And then you have to sign him anyways. So you're going to have to, he wants more money, and he's totally earned it. He's had the most sacks collectively over the last 2 years. He led the league in sacks last year. And so he's earned the right to ask for that. And I think if you're trading for him, you're willing to pay that.
I do
And
wanna
so-
talk on- yeah,
Go ahead.
No,
Well, I just
wanna
think
talk
to
on-
wrap up Hendrickson,
Yeah.
I think you understand you're going to pay him $35 million for probably 2-3 years, and trade the draft capital to get him. And for me, I'm all over it, man. Whatever it costs, you're not going to find another impact player like Hendrickson. And with edge rushers, you can't like do it in the aggregate. So you can't sign like a $12 million guy and like a $20 million edge and put them together in a season and create the impact of a Hendrickson. That's not how it works. Like, we've seen it in the playoffs. Like, you need a guy who can just make a play, like take over a game. It's hard to do that in the aggregate. Now, you could spread that money across the D-line, including the interior, and I would be okay with the Bills doing that and signing some guys that we talked about last week and spreading that money. Beth brings up one like Josh Sweat at 18 or 20 million, and then like a DJ Jones or something for 10 million on the interior. I could totally see that, and I'd be fine with that instead of Hendrickson. I don't think we have to trade for Hendrickson or the offseason's over. There's guys here to get, and then the draft is really deep when it comes to the D line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't get one of these big name guys, then I think you just got to take multiple swings and go for quality, rotational guys and quality starters instead of necessarily like one huge target.
I think I want to touch on two guys real quick, especially with on the topic of DK Metcalf, right?
Yeah.
Metcalf's gone,
I'll put that.
and
graphic
Devontae Adams signed today with the Rams. So
Dude, that deal
Is
was
that-
gross for Devontae Adams.
Yeah,
Were
that
you
was
expecting him to get that much?
No,
Devontae Adams got 2
30
years, 42 million. I think he got
like that,
over 20 million a year, which is crazy.
It was gross. But what does that mean for Cooper Cup now? Is he shown the door?
Oh, definitely, he's
Bills,
gone.
He's gone. So do the Bills take a step? I mean, yeah, he's 31 years old.
I don't think so, just because of fit.
Right.
I like him a lot, and I still think he's got juice. If you watch that tape, he was still getting open. They just didn't prefer. They were going after Nakua and stuff like that. But I don't. I just don't. For me personally, I don't want to spend a lot at receiver. So I was okay with them not going after DK. If you told me you weren't going to get any of the top DN guys, like you weren't going to get Sweat, you weren't going to get Hendrickson, you weren't going to get Crosby, Parsons, any of those, Garrett. And then we're talking like, okay, then go get DK and Pam. I'd probably be okay with that because then you just put the rest of your draft capital to young D-line acquisitions, right?
Yeah. So on the topic of Cooper Cup, though, Spot Track hasn't valued it. Obviously, it's not 100%, but
they got to cut him first. You're not trading for that.
Right. You're not trading him, but they haven't valued 2 years, 21 million. That's 10 million a year. I'll take Cooper Cup for $10-11 million a year for 2 seasons. Sure.
The only issue is just like
the fit.
I think, and you Brady can totally figure that out. You could make it work. Shakir can play more outside. Kincaid and Cup can work the more interior. I love Cup too blocking. I think that reduces maybe some of Matt Collins' role, and you have Matt Cup Collins do more of that.
And it reduces
if they bring
Curtis
Matt Collins
Samuel.
back,
reduces Curtis Samuel. I mean Samuel's
for sure, and I'm everyone's okay with that.
Obviously.
I mean, I guess that's a good bridge to get into the wide receiver. We're going to talk about wide receivers first. So this will be a little scene setter, what we're talking about right now. So the Bills currently have Shakir, Keon, and Samuel locked up for going into this year. I think we all agree the priority signing would be Matt Collins, bringing him back just because the way he rounds out that room. He's like the perfect wide receiver 4-5. He plays special teams. He can play a big tight end role. He blocks, and I don't think he's going to cost that much. Now, the fact that they haven't signed him yet makes me think that they're going to let him test the market and then maybe say, hey, come back and we'll match it, something like that. I'd hate to lose him just because of his versatility and stuff like that. But at the same time, we can't afford to pay him if he's going to go make money somewhere. So good for him if he goes and gets an offer. But, I hope they can bring him back for, under $5 million. And I think he earns that with the amount of snaps he plays in special teams and the different roles he can play on this team. And he really rounds out that room because then you have Keon and him playing outside. And then you have Samuel and Shakir playing inside. And then it lets you just draft or free agent sign one of these guys we're going to talk about as a speed threat or an outside guy, and it doesn't need to be an 80 target, 100 target guy. It could be a 50 target to 70 target guy on the outside that adds a little speed or something. Even if that's a rookie coming in, he doesn't have to be a big snap share guy. He can be a 60% snap share guy, a 40, 50 target guy and still make an impact if you have a Matt Collins who can then eat up those outside targets or outside snaps, I should say, and block and stuff like that. So I think Mack, it would be a really good signing just for the versatility he brings and would help bolster that room and then allow just one more move. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I think all Bills Mafia would love to have Mac back, regardless of
for sure.
the 4 or 5, whatever wide receiver role he plays. I don't think they should have him playing as many snaps as he did last year. But when he was called upon, he honestly played great.
A lot of that was injuries, right? Kincaid injured. The wide receivers all injured. The year of the wrist, right?
Yeah, I want to touch on the comment from Steve here. As far as Cooper versus Cup, Amari Cooper per Spot Track is valued at $14.2 million per year, $3 to $4 million more than Cup. Honestly, they're probably both going to get a little bit more than this, just based on the way the veteran wide receiver market is already trending with the Adams deal, the Deebo Samuel trade that happened earlier last week. So I would expect a little bit more than that, but then again, Amari Cooper is a year younger. He's a very different receiver. Cooper can play outside, stretch the field. Still, he showed that last year.
The thing I worry about with Amari Cooper is
Yeah,
I think he definitely lost a step, and you know the risk definitely impacted him with his separation and some of those drops, and I think that was the risk. But he wasn't nearly as fast, at least long speed, as he had been previously. And so I don't want to spend money on an older guy that can't do the thing that I want him to do. Now, Cup, you can convince me of because we want a man separator who can help Josh on the third downs and critical downs and takes focus away, you know, on the defense. And I think that's what Cup can still do on the inside.
Also
clutch.
Unbelievable blocker.
Unbelievable blocker, clutch, you know, good hands, clutch catches, and I think that on the interior would really help Josh. You know, you like kind of like the Beasley role, right? I think he plays like that kind of role as far as route running. You know, a lot of those stick routes and option routes and things like that, and I think that's where it could help. Also, really good guy for Shakir to learn from and Kincaid. And yeah, I'd take him under 10 million, but this offense really needs speed, man, and that's the only thing I don't think Amari Cooper does.
McDermott already hinted on it a couple times this offseason.
And the other thing with Cup is he's old and yeah, he's been injured, man. So I totally agree. Yep, he has not been consistent any part of his career, really. Like he has games where he definitely disappears. All right, well go ahead.
A lot of that was him on some bad teams with bad quarterbacks.
Oh, for sure.
So
all right, so here's the guys that we are going to fly through, okay? We're not going to spend a lot of time on these guys. These are guys that we don't think the Bills are going to go after. Obviously, you know, we already saw Devontae Adams get signed by the Rams, 2 years, 40, I think $2 million.
Yeah.
But these are some of the bigger names that I just wanted to wash over really quickly that are available. Keenan Allen, I just don't think he's the fit for the Bills and for the price. Diggs coming off the knee injury and plus the history, I don't think it's there. Brandon Cooks, I would have liked him 2 years ago. I think he's lost a step for sure. He did not have a great year, even just metrics-wise, not so much yardage and catching. But I think he's just like washed, and we need a speed guy here. Tyler Lockett, same thing, washed, speed guy, and then DeAndre Hopkins, I think, same thing, washed. So, you have any other thoughts on these guys? But I don't have any interest in any of them.
I'm in the same boat.
Outside of an injury, right, and bringing them in as like a vet minimum incentive deal.
I don't know. The only guy that might stick out to me a little bit is like Lockett. Like he can still run a little bit, and maybe you could squeak out like a John Brown year out of him.
For sure. So Kevin brings up that's the one guy I would trade for and be okay committing assets and signing him. Now you have the concussion issues with him. I don't think he wants to play with Carr again after the hospital balls he's thrown him. But I love Olave. I would trade for him in a second. I'm not sure if he's available. I would much rather Olave than DK Metcalf, just stylistically. But yeah, I just don't know if he's available. And to your other point, Kevin, I totally agree. Like I want defense. I'm all on defense. That's why we're not talking about these bigger name guys. They're going to cost more. You're going to see a lot of the guys we talk about are going to be, you know, $4 million, $3 million, $5 million, like a year or less, or vet minimum type deals that can fill a speed role or a 40 targets, 30 targets type of guy that you can swap in and out. Kind of like what they planned for MVS. He just didn't work out in the, you know, in the offense. I take Josh Palmer. Yep, we're going to talk about him in a little bit. So don't steal our thunder here, Steve. And then, New Orleans and Capel, man. I would totally offer them a pick for Olave. I'd give them, you know, probably a third, second. I don't know. What do you think it would take to get Olave?
I feel like you could get him for a third if
I'd give him our late second. Second.
Yeah, the late second for Olave, sure. The history with the concussions is a little concerning.
Matt, you already know the players we're going to talk about, so don't even try to cheat and name guys we're going to talk about, okay? But thanks for tuning into the show, bro. All right, so you've brought up Javon Holland a couple times. Beth, watch last. I mean, you can watch till the end of the show if you want. We're gonna cover safeties. I'm not even talking Javon Holland because he's at the top of the market, and I'll explain that when we get to the safeties. I just don't think that's where I want to invest my money, and I'll explain that when we get there. Really, if I'm going to spend money at all in this free agency, it's going to be DN, D tackle for me. All right, so let's get into it. We got a lot of guys to cover. First up is Slayton, Darius Slayton of the Giants. Now, I personally don't want the Bills to sign him just because I'm worried about his market. So it all depends on what the deal they can make, how much he wants to sign for. As far as a fit, though, I think he's a really good fit. He's 28 years old. He brings speed on the outside. Capable of running in the low 4.4s, 4.3, high 4.3. He's 18th in average depth of target at 13.7 yards. He's 20th in yards per reception at 14.7 yards. The other issue with him that I don't like is he's 83rd out of 98 in drops with 7 last year. That is way too high. Projected salary for him is 3 years, $47 million. I think that's just way too high for me with Darius Slayton. What is your thoughts on Darius Slayton, Don?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I feel like so much of that goes into his You look at the contract that he's projected, it's just too much for a guy that I'd want to invest in. That could potentially take away snaps from a guy who you're trying to develop in Keon Coleman. If I'm getting a field stretcher, I want a guy that I'm paying under $10 million a year for. I don't see a reason to pay him that much money and give him Mac Hollins type snaps.
No, I totally agree with you. I think that's my issue too, is like if we didn't have the high investment in Keon and then just paid Shakir, and we want to work targets to Kincaid, then I'd be okay. I would just rather draft a guy and give him snaps with Mac, and I would pay Mac. I would. Yeah. I would be willing to pay Mac more.
My thing would basically be, can you get the same production from a rookie or Keon Coleman as you could Darius Slayton? I think the answer at the end of the day is probably yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like if I could get Slayton for like $7 million or under a year, then we're talking, right? So yeah, we're gonna get to cornerbacks after wide receivers, Kevin. If you want to see who we like and who we're gonna target. So. All right, next up is Elijah Moore, who is one of the guys that Matt mentioned. Elijah Moore, I don't know what to make of him, right? I liked him coming out. He's played 58% in the slot, 42% out wide. He's going to turn 25 when the season starts, but he struggled to consistently separate. He's got the ability. Sometimes his metrics look really good creating separation. Other times it looks terrible. Over the course of last year, he was 92 out of 98 in separation. But there's weeks that he'll be top 10 in separation. So it's just weird. And that's versus man coverage. So it's just weird.
That comes off to me as like an effort thing.
Right. I totally agree with you. And so like there's something there. He's also got a small catch radius. And this is it. Disciplinary issues have been a thing with him. He sat out part of the Bengals game because of it. There's been rumors about it. You just mentioned why he might not be creating the consistent separation. He's had really bad quarterback play, though, through his career, and that makes the evaluation tough. But when you turn on the tape, man, you see some flashes, but consistency, man, it's just not there. I wonder if he can play outside enough to make it worth the Bills' time.
Right. That's the other thing with me is like he's kind of based on his size, his metrics, like he's a slot guy, and then it's do you move him outside, and if it doesn't work out, then I guess it is what it is. But the Bills have kind of gone through that where they sign these guys and then try and put them in positions at wide receiver where they may or may not fit. And like I think you just need a guy who fits exactly what you're looking for, and I don't know if that Elijah Moore is that guy.
Right. Yeah, and I like the idea of him. I think it just comes down to like cost and stuff like that. But he's projected 1 year, $4.5 million. He doesn't have the long speed, but he definitely can separate. He's a move piece. Just to me, is he like a younger Curtis Samuel type? Like I'm not sure. Right, I'm just not sure he can be like that true outside guy that we really need. But again, I don't want to invest in enough to where it would probably cost like. enough to get a true outside guy. So maybe can we piece that together with like Mac, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Shakir? Can all those guys rotate enough to take up the spot opposite Keon? Because we saw when Keon was healthy early, like the Bills are going to give him 85, 90% of the snaps, and that's great. It's just what can they do on the other side to eat up all those snaps? So. And I do like this from Kevin. Like whoever we get has to be young. I totally agree, and that's where I like the Elijah Moore one because he's younger, 25 years old. Hasn't really given a chance to prove it. A guy we're not going to talk about that I didn't make a graphic for that I do think is a good fit. If we don't get Mac Hollins, I think a good substitute for him would be Josh Reynolds. I really like Josh Reynolds. I think he's a really good fit. For what the Bills want to do. He's just Mac Hollins light, and so
he is.
I think if they couldn't get Mac Hollins, I would go after him. Yeah, he was with the Lions, and then he's with the Jaguars last year.
Jags, yeah.
So I would totally get him. And if I couldn't get Mac Hollins. All right, next up is Josh Palmer. We talked about him briefly. So he is 25 years old, 6'2", 210 pounds. He lines up 27% in the slot, 73% out wide. He ran a 4.5 140, so he's a good athlete. Not great, though, in the agility. He was 7th in average depth of target, though, last year at 15.1 yards. He's 14th in yards per reception at 15 yards, so he's definitely that deep threat that the Bills kind of need. He's shown the capability to do that. And I like that. The only issue I have is he played on a wide receiver needy team last year, right? And he was only 56th in pass snaps. He was only 57th in routes run. So why didn't he see the offense more? Now I know it's Greg Roman. I know they really wanted to get Quentin Johnson some time on the outside, but Ladd played mostly in the slot, and so why wasn't Josh Palmer worked in more? Like what is going on there? What is the story? He's projected 3 years, $12.8 million. I think at that price it's a no-brainer to pay on a 25-year-old guy. Here's his last 3 seasons. He had 70 catches for 700 yards 2 years ago. Last year he had 30 catches for 580, and then 3 years ago he had 30 catches for 500. So in 3 of his 4 years, he's put up over 300 catches and over 500 yards. So that's kind of what we need. We need a 30 to 40 catch guy, 500 to 600 yards. I think he can definitely do that on the outside. What's your thoughts on Josh Palmer?
I think you nailed that one, right? Is like, how are you not getting snaps in a quarterback or in a wide receiver needy offense? Greg Roman, but the 2 previous years it was kind of the same situation. Mike Williams was always in and out of the lineup for the Chargers with his injury history. So then you're kind of looking at him like, I feel like you want him to be that guy that could play opposite of Keon Coleman, but he'll just never be it. I think he's a good Mac Hollins replacement if they can't re-sign Mac, but I feel like he's just not the right type of guy for what the Bills are needing.
Who, Josh Palmer?
Yes.
I think he's exactly what he needs. I mean, I think they need a guy who can line up opposite.
But I don't think he's that guy though. Like you need.
I think he totally is. He's a field stretcher, man. Like he really is. His tape is really good. He gets open a lot and down the field. I think he's a perfect pair opposite Keon, and I think you'd share his snaps essentially with a Mac or a Josh Reynolds, and I think it would be really good. I think you could always get faster, but again, like he's thrived on deep targets. Like he's averaged over 14 yards a catch in his career.
Yeah. I will say that the 4 point whatever million that he's projected to get per season is definitely eye appealing. That's the one thing that would make me okay with signing him. Would just be that. Outside of that, like I'm a little concerned based on his history where he has had the ability to come into an offense and be the wide receiver 1. I think it was 2 years ago.
So it was 2 years ago when he had the ability to be wide receiver 1. He had 70 catches, 700 yards, and that was the year that Herbert was banged up, and he was really the only guy. So he's going to be option 4 or 5, and I think that he fits perfectly into that. I really think he's the best option if that's the price they could get him at, because I don't want the Bills spending more than $5 million a year on a wide receiver. And so, like, they're saying, oh, trade for T Higgins, whatever. I don't want the Bills to spend 30 plus million on a wide receiver. I don't care who he is. I mean,
No, I don't
Justin
think
Jefferson, is available, sure, whatever. But seriously though, like, I just don't think they need it. The offense showed last year that it's capable or not, and the issue is the defense. I think that money needs to be spent on the defense. It doesn't mean you shouldn't still take swings on high upside receivers. It doesn't mean you still shouldn't draft a high upside guy or a speed guy in the draft to get costs controlled. But if we're talking real dollars, I want that spent on the D line, not on wide receivers at this point for the Bills.
That I agree with.
Yeah, so that's Josh Palmer. Really like him. I'd be interested to see his market though. I could see some other teams being smart. There's a lot of wide receiver needy teams, and I think people are gonna really like his profile. So we'll see with that. And next up is Olamide Zaccheaus. For me, he's a no. I won't go too much into him. He's not an outside speed guy. He's more underneath and then creates yards after the catch inside. It's not really what the Bills need. And so for me, it's a no. It wouldn't cost very much, but I just don't think we need that player profile. 5'8" and a yak guy. Like we got that already.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Feel like we have 3 or 4 of those guys. It's just not what we're looking
Right.
for.
All right, next up, Diami Brown. I think he's another interesting one. I would take a look at him for sure. He's 25 years old, 6 foot, 195. He ran a 4.45. He's got long speed too. He had a 79% catch rate on 38 targets. That's really good, especially for the style he played. His average depth of target, though, was only 7.5. But his yak was 7.6, which was top 20 in the NFL. So they did a lot of slants, in breaking routes with him, over routes, and just a catch and run monster, dude. Is projected to be 1 year, $1.9 million. I would love that as a flyer, a guy you could line up outside with speed. Again, we're not talking like full-time starter here. I'm talking, 40% snaps, 30 targets, 40 targets, in a year type of guy. And he brings that. He's a little dynamic. What's your thoughts on Diami Brown?
I actually think that I like Brown more than Palmer a little bit. I think that he could play that role without having to cut into other guys' snaps as much as Palmer might have to, based on what you'd have to pay him. Also with Palmer, like you said earlier, like it's a 3 or 4 point, whatever projected. I think he's going to get a little bit more than that. I think just his size and profile is a little bit more appealing than Diami Brown's. Plus, Brown has less tape out there. I think that he was kind of in and out as far as snap sharing with the guy we actually are about to talk about next, in Noah Brown. Spoiler alert. But as far as his profile, I think he's a field stretcher. He doesn't need, he can play 30, 40% of snaps, can rotate him in and out, gives you the option to draft a rookie, potentially bring in a speed rookie that can kind of just alternate with him. And I think that the Washington offense kind of showed what he could do this year.
Especially late, man. He was on fire late and in the playoffs.
In the year, they were just going after him back.
He became their guy. Yeah, I mean, he was their volume guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because all the focus would be on Terry, and then Diami would be their guy. So for Kevin's point, like, I totally agree with you that no defense feared the pass game as far as deep stretching the field until we got Amari. But there isn't that guy available. Like, there isn't an Amari available. And then you're talking like trading big time assets and then paying for a guy like him, like in T, which I don't even think T Higgins is available, but doing that. And so that's the problem. Like, if those guys were available, like DK was the closest thing, I would be fine with that. Like, go for it. I would not be mad at that. I just think the focus needs to be on the defense, because that's what's been letting them down. It's not been the offense. I think the defense is where the money needs to go. And then, you can still draft a wide receiver. I'm not saying we shouldn't draft one either. There's just not the wide receiver talent out there for the type of receiver we need. He just doesn't exist right now.
It's
And
not
so
it's not a good year for that profile.
totally, it's not a good year. So that's why we're trying to find the bargain guys that can fit a specific role, that can line up outside and stretch a defense. The defense has to at least pay attention to them. And then, we'll address it maybe in the draft or next year or future years. But this is just a bad year for needing an outside speed guy. They just don't. They're not available. All right. Get to the next guy here now. One other thing, an update from Spot Track on Josh Allen's contract. So, Spot Track posted that his $55 million APY represents 19.7% of the current cap for this year. That ranks 13th among quarterback deals. So, that is the hometown bargain we were talking about. Yes, he got the most guaranteed, but per year basis, he's already 13th. That is insane. That is for sure a bargain. He could have waited. He still had 4 years left on his deal. He could have waited to next offseason and got paid way more. Kevin, I don't agree with you. They've already tagged him, so they're already willing to pay him the 23 whatever franchise tag. So they're already okay with doing that for this year. So I don't think a second round or third round pick is going to do anything for them. I don't think they care. They've already allotted that money to him. So I just don't see them getting rid of him for that. You could probably get him for more than a first, but then you have to then pay him $30+ million a year, and you're essentially shooting yourself in the foot with that move. I just don't like that for where the Bills are in their building phase. They have too many other needs that need to get filled. Next up's Noah Brown. He's 29 years old. He is what he is. He's a medium depth of target kind of guy. He's shown flashes of being a good player. Just injuries with him always crop up at the worst time. 6'2", 215 though, legit outside guy. Was playing pretty well before his injury this year. He's shown flashes 2 years ago with the Texans that he can play. Projected for 1 year, $1.5 million. He's the kind of guy you'd bring in. Same with even De'Ami Brown. Just bring him in, man. Have him battle it out in camp preseason. See if you can find a role for him and see what happens. I don't mind kicking the tires on him for that kind of deal.
Yeah, it's another guy that you could just bring into camp, like you said, and just see what he has. I do remember the year he had with the Texans a couple of years ago. I mean, obviously he was a couple of years younger, but still has some game-breaking speed, can get downfield. The size is obviously nice to have. I think he's a kind of guy where if you don't bring in Mac Hollins or bring back Mac Hollins for whatever reason the Bills aren't able to do it, that Brown could be kind of a secondary option for them. Doesn't need to play a ton of snaps. Can just kind of go in there and play 30, 40% of snaps, stretch the field, play some special teams, and block.
Yeah, no, like it. I like it a lot. I think that was well said. All right, next guy, last guy. He's an interesting one, fellas. So and ladies, let's not jump. Let's just hear it out. Hear it out. Deontay Johnson, does he want to try for a fourth team in less than a year? Man, it's all mental for him. 29 years old in July. Does he even want to play? Does he even want to practice? Does he even want to get on the field? Because if he does, he's really good. Even last year, he's still a top-tier separator versus man and zone. Last year, he was top 10 in the snaps he played as a separator versus man coverage. Now, he didn't play a lot, and that was mainly all because of him. So, on 3 different teams. So, does he want to play? If he wants to play, does he want to play on a prove-it deal? I'm sure you could get him very cheap, under $4 million, probably even less and then do base salary and then do incentives. But as far as talent, as far as what the Bills need, he's it, man. Explosive outside receiver who can beat man coverage. That's Deontay Johnson. That's who he's been his whole career. Just what does he want to play? I agree. I agree with Kevin. He's
with
the best
Kevin.
bargain basement guy, man. You bring him into
100%.
camp, you see what's there. It's kind of like what's his name from last year? I'm drawing a blank, man. Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, played in Pittsburgh, Chicago, Miami. Claypool. He's kind of like Claypool at this point, right? Like, bring him in, minimum deal, put whatever incentives you want in there. Fuck, I don't care. I'd put incentives up to $10 million or whatever, $12 million.
Honestly, he's worth it, yeah.
You know, as the hard to reach ones that don't kick in this year. And if he gets them all, then fantastic. You know what I mean? Like, I hope he gets them all. But yeah, I would do a minimum. Bring him in if he wants to play and see what happens. He's that talented. I just, mentally.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what happened. Like, kind of, maybe it'll come out, maybe it won't, with like the Baltimore situation. Obviously, before that, the Pittsburgh quarterback situation was
right. What happened in Houston too, man? Right,
like, the train wreck. The Houston situation, which is kind of weird, but like maybe he wanted to play more, and like Diggs and I'm drawing a blank on the other wide receiver there.
Houston.
Yeah. Ohio State. Other wide receiver at Ohio State.
God, I'm drawing a
from
blank.
Ohio State. Yeah. Well, we'll figure that out.
God, why am I was reading the Josh Allen. Some of the details came
I'm
out
gonna
on
have
his
to go look it
contract.
up now.
So they're saying that he ripped up the final 4 years of his contract. So
Nico Collins.
Nico Collins, there you go. Yeah.
Maybe it was a playing time thing, but
between Nico and Diggs but I thought they signed him after Diggs already went down and Nico was hurt.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe they traded for him after that. But either way, it was a weird situation regardless of where he went. Who knows where his head was
I agree
at.
with that part too.
Yeah.
So that's a good point, Kevin.
So
the Josh Allen piece though that came in it's a fresh 6-year deal. So it's 6 years. 330, so $55 million a year, $250 million guaranteed. I'm guessing is the first 4 years, which is like $63 million a piece, which would make him the highest paid essentially for those first couple years. But really, it's over the life of the deal. I think it gives the Bills flexibility and to move money around coming up, and so it's awesome. All right, the next guy we were going to talk about was DK Metcalf, but obviously he's going to the Steelers now. If you weren't aware, he was traded to the Steelers and they just paid him 5 years, $130 million. I don't think I'd want to do that deal. I'm sure you could structure it, but he's not a high volume guy. 5 years, 150 million. Yeah, $30 million a year. Yeah, you're right. And he's not a high volume guy. He's for what the role he actually plays, I think is perfect for the Bills. I just I don't want to lock up $30 million a year on a non-high value or high volume guy. It's kind of the same argument as like a Cook issue. Like, I really like what James Cook brings to the team. I like that he's on the Bills, but he's not Saquon Barkley. He's not CMC in his prime. He's not the Jacobs, he's not a guy or Derrick Henry, that he's in all 3 downs. He gets 80% of the snaps. That's just not who he is. And that's it for DK. He's not a volume guy. So he's not a Jamar Chase. He's not a Justin Jefferson. Like, is he a vertical threat that's very scary and an alpha on the outside? For sure. And that role is exactly what the Bills need. I just don't think I'd want to pay a 2nd-round pick and $130 million for 5 years.
It's also a weird landing spot for him too. I think that
money, dude. Money talks.
Yeah,
it's money.
But no quarterback. Pickens and him are kind of the same player, like profile.
Dude, fun. No, totally agree. Holy crap, is that fun though on the outside? And dude, I think honestly, it might signal Russ is coming back for another year, because as far as quarterback pairings with those guys, he makes a lot of sense. Yeah, dude, throw the moon ball to them. Give them 5 moon balls each a game. Yeah, dude. Anytime you get single coverage, I think it makes sense. I just don't.
One of those will hit. One of those will hit, right?
Yeah, I just don't think I want to pay that. I think I'm okay with going younger, cheaper, and spreading the money elsewhere.
One wide receiver that we didn't really have on our list, so I don't think we have a graphic for him. But I want to hear what you think about Nick Westbrook-Akine. Right. So
yeah. So I purposely left him off. So go ahead and talk about him, and then I'll give you why I left him off.
So the touchdowns is a fluke. I'm not going to really pay attention to that. The one thing I did want to touch on though was 32 receptions on 60 targets is not great, but Will Levis was throwing the ball, so we all kind of know what that was about. The one thing is 15.5 yards per catch. A lot of those were big play, 30, 40, 50. I think he had a 98-yard touchdown at one point in the season, so those kind of stretches average reception out. But 6'2", 211 pounds, only 27 years old. Could probably get him for under $3 million a year on a one-year deal. So what were your thoughts on him, and why didn't you include him?
He's a slot receiver. I don't want a slot receiver. That's what he is. That's where he excels. Yeah. He's good. Don't get me wrong, but we got better ones. I'd rather have Shakir, obviously, and then I'd rather have even Samuel as that backup in there. I don't need it, and I think he's going to get more than that. Like, sure, $3 million or under, I would 1,000% take him. I don't think he's getting that. I think he's getting more, and so I just don't. I don't want to be in that, and he's not what we need. So if we're talking like full luxuries, like nice to have players, sure, man, you could sign me up. I'd be okay with that, but he doesn't fit what we need, and I don't think that projection's right. Like, I think he's going to get easily more than $4 million a year because this market is it's not there.
It's bad. It's a bad market.
Yeah. Yep. But we'll see. You never know. He's going to be 28, so it's not like he's a 25-year-old guy either. So, all right, we'll move into the corners now. First up is Paulson Adebo. So this first tranche of corners, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6, I guess, if you want to include that one. But these 6 guys are like pipe dreams. Like, the Bills have to want to go after these guys and spend the money. I think they're expensive, but they're good, and they're borderline cornerback ones, and they'd be great pairs with Benford. I just don't if they're going to want to go after edges and tackles, D tackles. I would always rather go trenches than back end guys, and I'd rather draft a young guy, and we've seen what this regime can do with young corners and secondary pieces, and so I'd rather them do that and even take a couple swings like they did in 2022 with Benford and Elam. I'd rather them do that again than necessarily pay big for a corner. But if you told me that they were able to lock up some or trade for a DN and a D tackle and we were good and then filled those holes and they wanted to target one of these guys, I'd be perfectly fine with it. So I just want to set the stage for these guys.
Yeah, one thing to add to that is also we have seen this regime do that one time, and they traded for Rasul Douglas in the middle of the season. But outside of that, they've never paid a free agent corner to come in. Right. Not big money. They've always
their stance has always been pay your CB1 and then figure it out on your CB2, right? And maybe philosophies change. I'm not sure. So we'll start it off with Paulson Adebo. I really like him, man. He turns 26 in July, 6'1", 192. He was 22nd in pass breakups. He's 8th in interceptions last year. He had a much better 2023, though, than last year, but started all of the Saints defense. He is a ball hawk, though, over his career, man. He goes and gets the ball. He averages 0.32 interceptions a game in the last 2 years. That's insane, and that's kind of what the Bills have liked is guys that go and get the ball. He's projected for 2 years, $22 million. And at that price, I'd be all over it. I'd even make that a longer deal and maybe keep it like a 2-year, $22 million, but have it actually be like a 4-year, $44 million, with dummy years on the end. But I really like him, man. I like the player. I think there's more there with him, but he's a long corner, ball hawk, and can tackle too. What's your thoughts on Paulson Adebo?
I think so the last thing you said there would be my one concern I have with him would be that he was 48th in solo tackles and 81st in assisted tackles. So he had 5 assisted tackles all season. So is he really going to willingly get in there and make tackles? I don't know. And that's a little bit concerning to me in this type of defense where the corners need to be able to tackle, especially if we start to move more towards a man scheme and kind of a little bit away from the zone. So outside of that, like great player profile, long, can run with just about most of the guys out there. And I think
it's also the style of defense though, like that you play. So that's hard to say for a corner. If they don't get targeted enough, they're not going to get as many tackles. His missed tackle rate though is 10%, which is not bad for a corner. That's
six missed tackles all season last year. So
right,
44th. Yeah.
Right, and look over his career. I mean, it's pretty steady. If anything, it's gone down the last 2 years. So, yeah, I think it's a good point. Like, how much is he going to come up and play the run? At the same time, though, like it really depends on what the defense asks him to do, and I'm not sure, if the Saints were asking him to do that or not. But good player, man. It just depends. I don't know what his market's going to be. I don't know how much people are going to pay. He's young. He's young for this group too.
It's a long shot.
It just depends if they want to commit a lot of money. We already talking about Benford, paying him, and he's going to be $20 million or more probably a year. So do you want to tie up $32+ million in your starting corners? I'm not sure. That's a bean and question to answer. But boy, I would love what he brings to the outside. Next guy I know is a lot of people's favorite. Charvarius Ward, a lot of guys really like him. 6'1", 196. This graphic says 28, but he's 29. And so a little bit older. I think he even turns 30 in May.
I'll check on that.
He had a rough season last year, but a lot of that was personal. I don't want to get too much into it because, it was really tough, and I kind of like to keep guys' personal lives personal. But he had a death in his family, one of his kids, and he wants out of California because of it, and it was just really tough. He sat out a couple games. His first game back was against the Bills in that snow game. He just had a really tough year, and his track record shows that's not who he really is as a player. And so I kind of just scrapped last year as like a tough, personal year for him. But he's a really good player, smart, tough, could play press man, could play zone, off ball. Ton of playoff experience, though. He was on the Chiefs teams for the Super Bowls. He's been on this 49ers the last couple of years on their late runs. And he's used to being a cornerback one on the outside against the team's best guys. He's locked up Diggs solo one-on-one on the outside. And so I really like that versatility with him and Benford and not having to follow guys and just line him up against whoever. That versatility would be really fun. My only concern really is his age and bouncing back off of this down year. Again, a lot of that was more personal and mental, and so I totally think he can. But that would be my concern. He's projected 3 years, $45 million. So again, like it's not top tier money for a corner, but it's a big investment. And do the Bills want to pay both their outside corners that much? What's your thoughts on Ward?
Yeah, so I did check on his age situation first thing overall. He is 28. He turns 29 in May, per Wikipedia. So we'll see if that's right or wrong. But as far as plug-and-play replacement for Rasul Douglas, I mean, I think he kind of fits that role. He could line up opposite of Benford and be an immediate plug-and-play kind of guy. Like you said, though, it's just tying up the cap space. You got to pay Benford. If they pay another cornerback like Charvarius Ward or any of these five guys we're going to talk about, or three more after this, where does that put you with Benford and where does that put you with the defensive line? I think it's going to get interesting. We've seen the team tie up some of their money in this secondary in previous years, and I think hopefully they go to the trenches.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me is I love these guys. I just don't know if I want them to pay it.
They feel like pipe dreams.
There's no way they're moving Benford to safety, man. Like he's so like I don't think people realize by most metrics he's top 5 corner in football. Yeah. Like he was unbelievable, and in some metrics he was number 1 last year. Like they're not moving him to safety. Like that is not going to happen. Maybe in 10 years or something.
I think the safety move came and went when he came into training camp, and they said you're a good safety, but you're a better corner.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up on the list is another guy in the same kind of bucket. We know him well, DJ Reed, 28 years old, 5'9", 188. Last year was 22nd in pass breakups, 65th in receptions allowed, though, out of 223 corners, 47th in coverage grade, 43rd in run grade. He's a very solid player, though, proven CB2, but can cover, and play with most guys. He can handle the volume opposite of an elite cornerback one, which is always good to have. The only thing with him is very low interception rate. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's got a good pass breakup rate, but just doesn't flip the field. And we've seen Bean and McDermott gravitate more towards corners that'll go get the ball. And so that's the thing he really doesn't do. This is his chance, though, at his last big payday. And so I just think he's going to want to go where the money is still. He's coming off a 3-year, $32 million deal last time. And Spot Track has him projected for 4 years, $58 million this year, which is 14.7 APY. So is he worth it? Absolutely. I'm not sure the Bills want to pay it, and I'm not sure he's the perfect corner if they're going to pay that out of this group that they would go after.
Yeah, the one thing I did love about DJ Reed was like he played opposite of a cornerback one, whether you think he is or not. I mean, with the Jets,
Sauce.
Opposite of Sauce. Like, Sauce, you can say what he wants. Cornerback one, maybe he is, maybe he's not. I mean, he had a pretty terrible year last year, but regardless, like, you want a guy that has a proven track record as a cornerback too, where you're going to see more targets. But at the end of the day, like, I don't foresee us spending this much money on a guy who's probably going to demand potentially the most out of all of these guys, just based on his history and potentially his last chance at a payday.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, Kevin, I mean, I agree. I don't think he's his profile, but he definitely plays the way McDermott wants. He's a tough physical guy.
Physical
can play man, can play zone. Yeah, physical tackler. And so I think they'd like the player. He's not a ball hawk, and I don't know if I want to pay a guy that much that doesn't turn the ball over.
Honestly, the ball hawk thing probably has a lot to do with his size as well.
Totally. He gets a lot of pass breakups, so he gets there. He just doesn't – maybe he doesn't have enough length to make the play. All right, next guy, Byron Murphy. I know a lot of people really like this guy, and as they should. He's a really good football player. I just don't think you're going to pay for him. He's going to be – right, he's going to be CB1 money. He's the number one corner on the market right now. Really good player. I just think he's overpriced. I don't think he's worth the money he's going to get. Right, he's projected 4 years. 4 years, $88 million. He is a ball hawk, though, man. Number one in interceptions last year. Ball hawk, man. Sixth in solo tackles. He gives up a lot of catches, though, but not deep catches. He gives up the third most in coverage. So he's an interesting player. He's not like a lockdown guy for me. And so he's projected 4 years, $88 million. I just think it's way too much money for what he is. And if we didn't have Christian Benford, I'd be totally open to it. I don't think that's where we are right now.
Yeah, it's just this is the pipe dream of all pipe dreams here, and that there's just no reason to go pay a guy $22 to $25 million a year when you have a guy like Benford. The other thing is like that you touched on was his receptions allowed and all that stuff. But like Minnesota was in a lot of shootouts last year, so obviously a lot of these corners are going to have
for sure. And what Kevin's saying, like they force a lot of quick throws, with the way they get after it.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of cover zero, a lot of blitz looks. And so, it was a lot of underneath stuff. And that's why he was making a lot of tackles and giving up a lot of throws. And I didn't necessarily mean that negatively.
No, I didn't think he did either.
I just mean stylistically, it's not what the Bills have been leaning more towards going to. So, really good player, though. Like, I don't mean to sound like he's not a good player. We're just talking fit for the Bills and cost. I think just the cost really isn't.
The cost is just astronomical compared to what you'd want us to spend on a guy. I mean, take that $22 million, put it into a defensive end at that point.
Yeah, or Paulson Adebo and DJ Jones. Like, you could have both those guys for the cost
two or
of
three guys, exactly.
Byron Murphy. All right, next up's Carlton Davis. He's 28 years old. 6'1", 206, really good player, man. Really like him, feisty. You talk about like a fit with McDermott, and Carlton Davis is definitely that prototype that he likes. 29 overall grade out of 223 corners, 26th in run grade, 38th in coverage. He had 33 pass breakups last year, 44th in receptions allowed, and he had the 61st most snaps. He did miss week 16, 17, and 18 with a broken jaw that he suffered during the Bills game. His market looks like 3 years, 41 million, about 13.8 APY. I really like him, man. Good player. Again, it just comes down to the money. Like, can you make it work? Is he the guy you want? He lacks a little long speed, but good player, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you were on the Lions defense last year, you were injured at some point in the season. So he was right. But before that, he was with Tampa. He spent 6 seasons with Tampa, part of the Lovie Smith defense, not Lovie Smith, Todd Bowles defense. Too many former Jets coaches there, but willing tackler, physical, long. Like you said, not the most speed kind of guy, but again, are you going to put the money into a guy like this when you could re-sign a guy like Benford? And I just don't think it's there.
Yeah, I agree. Little update from some of the Josh contract news. Shout out to Greg at Cover One. One of the cap wizards. He's saying with the way the deal's structured so far, it looks like the Bills have created another 11 million in cap space for 2025, which should put them in the 20 million range right now with available cap. And then there's a couple, they could do an extension or two and a couple restructures and get a lot more. But right now they're a little over 20 million, and we'll see what they do with it. All right, next guy on the list is Asante Samuel Jr. Really liked him coming out, man. Really good player. 25 years old, 5'10", 180. I thought he was going to be a slot player. I didn't like him for the Bills because of that. But he's played a lot outside, mostly outside for the Chargers. Over 89% of his snaps have been outside. He had a shoulder injury in week 4 and missed the rest of the season. So that is a little bit of a concern. Like, how's that doing? Is there concern going in the future? Another big concern with him is his missed tackle rate is insane. His career missed tackle rate is 16.5%. That is insane. Like, Trey White, we loved him, and we used to knock him for not being able to tackle or missing a lot of tackles. His career was 13.6. And Asante Samuels is 16.5. So that is scary. He is projected 4 years, 45 million. And I do worry about coming off that injury shortened year. Like, might that affect his market at all? I'm not sure. And how comfortable teams feel. But as far as just straight up player, he's a really good player, really twitchy athlete. And he plays tough, man. I like him. What's your thoughts on Asante Samuel Jr.?
I think that I'm definitely concerning about the tackling, but from a positive standpoint, I mean, a great player. I remember when he came out of the draft, and I think you and I had both talked about him potentially being on the list, but just saw him more as a slot guy. Obviously, he's played more outside. I think that like Spot Track has him valued right now at around 11.5 million per year. That's kind of in the range where I'd be okay with giving a cornerback 2 money. The problem is, are you going to get the results you need from him as far as a scheme fit, in the tackling that we would require out of our corners? I don't know. And then if you don't get that tackling, you need to get turnovers. You need to get forced fumbles, interceptions, pass breakups out of them. And I don't know if you'll be able to get all of that without being able to tackle in this scheme.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think really good player, and coverage wise, I think he's really good and gives you some versatility. But yeah, the tackling thing, I worry about run defense, and then what you're paying him too. But yeah, good player. I'm not sure he's going to be a Bills type type target. All right, now we're going to get into some more veterans, some bargain bin type stuff. Probably what the Bills will do is one of these guys is more likely, and then a draft pick would be the most sense. So we're gonna go through a couple guys here. First up's Akilla Weatherspoon. Played for the Rams last year. He's going to be 30 years old by the time the season starts. 6'2", 195. Solid player. Had to step in last year. Was signed in the middle of the year and played well for the Rams down the stretch after they had to get rid of Trey White because Trey White couldn't play. I think he'd be great, especially at the cost to bring in. Can't battle guy. I think you draft a corner too, have him, if Kyrie's still on the team, you have him, Kyrie, and your draft pick battle it out for CB2. And at worst, he's your CB3 with really good veteran depth. And I think he'd be a good swing. He's projected for the vet minimum, 1 year, $1.25 million. Yeah, Josh, we really like Paulson Adebo too. We covered him as our first corner in this section. So we really liked him. It just comes down to cost and if the Bills want to pay his cost. Donnie, what's your thoughts on Kilo?
I like Witherspoon. Big, long corner. Definitely could fill that cornerback 3-4 role, could step in and play like he did last year, kind of on short notice, and just feel the need if an injury pops up. I think that would make a lot of sense. Some of the other guys we're going to cover also kind of fit that role, but as far as like a big, solid size guy that you could slot in there, kind of a replacement for Douglas, but more of like a depth player instead of a starter, he kind of fits that role pretty well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. All right, next up, we know this guy, Alex Austin, 24 years old by the start of the season, 6'1", 191. I think he'd be more of your depth player, CB3, 4 special teams who could start in a pinch. Even let him battle it out for CB2, CB3. 39% of the snaps last year for the Patriots and played pretty well. He was 44th in pass breakups. He was 85th in coverage grade. And he's going to get a minimum deal for depth, special teams. And so I like bringing him back in. They obviously liked him coming out, and they got a good look at him. So, if they want to bring him back, then he obviously fits what they want. But I think he'd be really good as a depth corner with some versatility.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing that sticks out the most to me for him is like he can play special teams. He could end up on the practice squad a little bit. I don't think he's a guy that you need to technically roster all season, but could also bring that size and experience on it. And it's also like the Patriots defense was pretty brutal last year as far as up front in the trenches. Like they didn't really have much of a pass rush. They didn't have much of a linebacker core at all. So then you're kind of relying on your corners out there. And I think a lot of them got left on an island after you aren't really throwing at Christian Gonzalez much anyway. So it's hard to look at a lot of those guys on the Patriots statistically, just how bad they were. For a 23, going to be 24 years old, good size. It's definitely worth a shot just for a camp body.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point, having to play in that scheme. And the cornerbacks coach came over from there to the Bills this year. So there's even more familiarity with him. And they're very scheme versatile. So they asked him to do a lot of stuff, which I really like as well. So yeah, I think it's a good no risk or low risk signing. I would not be shocked if he was brought in for sure. I think I'd be more shocked if he wasn't brought in.
Yeah, especially with the familiarity with the Patriots. With the Patriots last year, their staff, and then with us hiring, can't remember his name, but I think you could hit on it at some point. But
yeah, they're cornerbacks coach.
Yeah, the cornerbacks coach that now we brought in here. So I like that familiarity. All
right, next up is Kendall Fuller.
Another guy we're familiar with.
We're familiar with him from the Dolphins. Yeah, he's going to be 30 years old. He's 5'11", 198. He only played in 11 games last year. 60% of the snaps. But when he played well. I think he's another one of these CB2, CB3 guys. Bring him in, have him battle it out with another guy or two, and see who wins the CB2 job, and then the other guy will be your backup. I think he's a good one to rotate with, like a rookie. He was 36th in run D, 94th in coverage out of 223 cornerbacks. He was 44th in pass breakups. I think you can get him on like a little more than a vet deal or maybe some incentives, but I think he'd be a nice floor for your CB2.
Yeah, I actually kind of really love the fit for Kendall Fuller. He was with Washington for a couple of years before that. Then he was with Kansas City before that, and I think maybe he started with Washington before that even. But he was kind of always – he was never a top 10 corner, but he was kind of in that top 10 to 20 range. Probably lost a little bit of a step. Probably went to Miami last year and was probably asked to play in a defense on a team that didn't have any offense because of the injuries with Tua. So they relied a lot on their defense. So it's hard to look at his stats and metrics from last year. But if you go back to the years with Washington, I mean, really good coverage corner, can tackle, good in run D. The only thing would be that he's 30 years old, but if you bring him in on a 1-2 year deal, I think he's a guy that could prove that he can still play quite a bit as a cornerback 2 or 3.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly said. All right, next guy is, I know, popular. I know Joe Marino of Locked On Bills talked about him. This was one of the guys he likes. It's Christian Fulton, 27 years old in September. He's 26 right now. 5'11", 197. Big thing is just injuries, man. He hasn't played a full season in his 4-year career. I don't know if I like this as like your starter, like bringing him in to be your CB2, but I absolutely love this as if he's going to be, like we just talked about, your competed out with a rookie, and if they still have Elam, let those 3 guys duke it out, and whoever wins, great, and then you have solid depth no matter what with the other 2. So yeah, we know when he plays, he's been good. 40th overall, 22nd in run, 62nd in coverage grades. Projected at 2 years, $6.8 million. And again, like, he's got the talent. It's just, can he stay healthy? And so, do you want to pay him money if he can't play a full year? But when he plays, he's good, man. And so I like him. I wouldn't mind them going after him. And then, like I said, drafting a guy 3rd, 4th rounds, 5th round, something like that, to come in and compete with him.
I think the one thing that will dictate where he ends up, obviously, is going to be money. And if a team is going after him thinking he's going to play more, or if they can get 15, 16 games out of him, they're going to pay him more than that 2 years, 6.8, whatever he's projected to get, just based on where he was drafted and then kind of his play over the 40 years. Obviously, he can't really stay on the field, but he's produced when he is on the field. So if a team out there that has some cap space takes a stab at him, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But on the other hand, like, I think he'd be a great cornerback 3-4 for us. Let him compete. Just pretty much like you said, I think you nailed that one.
I got to give some credit to Joe Marino, Locked On Bills again. Great listen. If you don't check him out, no free ads, but that's a free ad. All right. Lastly on this list is Eric Stokes. This is a guy I loved coming out. Really good athlete out of Georgia, 26 years old, 6'1", 194, really good length. Just hasn't materialized, man. 9.37 RAS score coming out. He ran a 4.31 40. His agility scores weren't great, though, and he was a little raw, and so he's really just purely, it was a traits guy with upside that they couldn't bring it together with him. He couldn't stay on the field all the time. He had some injuries. He doesn't have the ball production. But if he's a guy I'd want to bring in as a camp body vet minimum, kick the tires on, and see if we can't coach something out of him if there's not something there. Really low risk signing, but I like the traits, the player.
Yeah, I'm on board there. And then a lot of that was his production last year was pretty tricky to take a look at with Jair Alexander in and out of the lineup. He was getting lined up with guys probably that you typically wouldn't want to see him get lined up against. But yeah, as another cheap pick, just like Josh said here, would be a great pickup. Good camp body. Bring him in, see what he has as far as a metrics guy. He fits the mold. So that's really all I have on him.
All right. That's good enough for me. All right. Quick update from our graphics dude, Matt Dygert here at Dude Champions. He was able to pump this out. This is the latest and greatest after the Josh Allen new deal. They ripped up his old deal, made it from a 4 years. It's now a 6-year deal. Here's what it does for the cap with all the other moves we've done, the extensions. We are currently sit at $21.2 million in cap space. Again, like we talked about, the Bills have the ability to make another $40-50 million in cap space without having to do too crazy of stuff. If they pulled all their levers, they could do it. I think realistically, they could make another 20-ish million pretty easily with a couple extensions, maybe kick, one or two of the bigger deals like Dawkins or Spencer Brown
Milano.
down, but Milano. But I'd rather see like a Connor McGovern extension to get us more cap space. I think that would be nice. So we'll see what's left for Big Baller Bean. But right now we got about $20 million to play with starting tomorrow. But again, don't let that tell you like, oh, the Bills can't make moves. Like they can easily create cap space pretty quickly. If need be, with some of the levers we talked about, and they already have some of those set up that they'll pull when they need them. All right, so that was corners. Let's transition here into safeties. First guy up is staying in Washington. So the first guy up was Jeremy Chin. I didn't love the fit just because I don't think the Bills want to invest that much in him, but he's staying in Washington. So we're gonna go on to the next one. Next one's Julian Blackman, 27 years old by the start of the season. He's projected 3 years, $24 million. I just don't like that money. So maybe let's talk about the safety position first and what you think the Bills are going to do, because then that will probably dictate what kind of assets or money they want to put into it, to the position. I think Rapp is their starting, whatever you want to call him, free safety, but, moving chess piece. But I think Taylor Rapp is who they want, or I'm sorry, Cole Bishop is who they want to be their box safety, line up against tight ends, come in and help against the run, matchup guy, and coming downhill. And obviously he needs to develop more and take a step, but I think the plan is for those two guys to start. And so are the Bills going to go out there and spend money, starter money, on a safety? I'm not sure. They also have Cam Lewis on the roster, who's shown that in spurts and he can come in and at least be serviceable. So that gives you a nice floor as your safety 3 or 4. Plus he's a special teams guy, and so I think Cam Lewis is someone you don't want to forget. Rappler hurts the team. Yeah, he does, and every once in a while. But I think Bills fans
last year.
I think Bills fans don't understand how good a player he was last year and how much he does for that defense. In the games he didn't play, it was noticeably different, that defense. And so I think he is a quality starting safety. He's not just serviceable. Like Rapp last year was a quality safety. You could say Hamlin was serviceable, or you get by with him. But Rapp was quality. He was making plays. He played well last year. I think that's what they're trying to find, is a playmaker next to him. I think, it depends who you talk to, is whether or not Bishop has the ability to do that. I just don't know how much they want to invest in another safety that might not start. I don't think Hamlin was bad. I think he had some bad moments, but overall, I think he was a solid starter. And it's just what you ask him to do. He's not a great athlete. He's not going to play the deep half of the field well. But I thought he had moments coming up against the run, and then he wasn't as bad in coverage as people thought. Like the film was not that bad. So, and I'm not a Hamlin defender by any means, man. I am not. But I totally agree with you. They got to upgrade from him. And I think that's what the plan was for Bishop to. But he's got to take a big step forward. So how much do the Bills think he could do that will tell you with the move they make in free agency or the draft. If they spend money on free agency at a safety, that tells you they're worried about Bishop and they don't think he can be your starter. And so I would watch out there, man. If the Bills spend 5, 6, 7 million or more on a safety, that tells me that that's your starter, and Bishop's going to be more your third safety in the box guy. Maybe a dime looks or nickels. So what's your thought, Donnie, on just the overall safety position or what the Bills want to do?
Safety is so hard to evaluate for this team because of the stability we had over the years. But the one thing that this regime has shown is that when they go get free agent safety, they've been really good at it. Obviously, Hyde and Poyer, and now Taylor Rapp has shown out of free agency that they've been able to go find him. And they kind of like to take these guys that may not have been a really good safety, but they were good safeties, and turn them into really, really good players. Blackman kind of fits that mold. The problem is like it gets a little tricky with the Bishop situation, but overall, I think I trust whatever this regime does at that position. They've shown over their history that no matter what they do at the safety position, they've kind of gotten the most out of that position, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at last year, I think the plan was it was supposed to be Taylor Rapp and Mike Edwards were your starting safeties.
100%.
And then they brought
100%.
Bishop in to be the Poyer role from the previous year. Yeah, the box safety, the light linebacker, kind of your 3 linebacker set guy. Match him up against tight ends, play the run, play downhill, blitz him. He's really good when you blitz him. And I think that's what their plan was for him last year. And then he had the slow camp start, and then he had the injury, and then he was forced into play. And so I think their idea for Bishop was really thrown out of a loop last year.
And then on top of that, Bishop played both free safety when Rapp was out and Hamlin was playing, or when Hamlin was out and Rapp was playing. Like, he was playing, honestly, 3 different safety positions, whether that was free safety, the in the box, or kind of the strong safety when you didn't need to bring him down into the box. And I think that made it really hard to evaluate really what you wanted him to do last year. And it's really going to be a big off season for him. We're just going to kind of, like I
totally agree. I don't, like for that reason,
what they do.
For that reason though, are they going to invest in a safety here? And I think what they do,
right,
if they invest in a safety, that tells you that maybe their plan really is for Bishop to be more of like that chess piece, that joker kind of player, cover tight ends type of guy, and then have 2 safeties back there. And then maybe if he has a great offseason and beats out whoever you sign, then great, but forces the issue. But so that's why we're going to talk about some of these guys, but we just want to set that stage that some of these guys are going to seem a little expensive, but they're kind of like middle of the pack, and then we'll talk about some guys that are cheaper. But I didn't want to include like a Javon Holland because I don't think they're going to pay top of the dollar market for a safety when we have other needs elsewhere. They just haven't shown that they wanted to do that in the past, and so I just don't think they're going to do it now. So that's why I didn't put Javon Holland here. But and then Jeremy Chin signed. So here's Julian Blackman. I think he's all right. I didn't love what I saw from him. I think he's a starting safety. I don't think I want to pay $8 million per year for Julian Blackman.
I think Blackman he's a good player. I don't know, $8 million, maybe you can get him if you're lucky down to 6. But like, I went back and looked at what the Bills signed Hyde to back in 2017 when they brought Hyde in. You can go back and look at Poyer too, and it's like 5 years, $30 million for a guy who really didn't play a ton for the Packers when he was on his rookie deal there. I mean, he was a special teams guy returning punts for them. So I think if they find a guy that they like on tape, I don't really think it matters who it is. I think they'll find a role for him if it's a safety, whether it's Blackman or some of these other guys they touch on or that we're going to touch on. It's really the one position on this regime where I don't really care who they bring in. I think they would make the most of them. I think we talk about 1 or 2 other guys here I wouldn't like to see them bring in, but I do really trust whatever this regime does at that position.
I agree with you. I think these are just some of the interesting names that they might bring in.
Yeah.
So, all right, next up is Jordan Fuller. I'm not a fan of Jordan Fuller. He's going to be 27. Projected market is 2 years, 10 million roughly. He was the worst coverage safety in the NFL last year. I'm not sure if that's scheme, what they asked him to do, whatever. But from what I've seen of him, I haven't loved him, and for that price, I think is pretty ridiculous. Do you have any thoughts on him? I didn't dive too deep in him. I've watched 2 of his games
I
last
think
year, and then go ahead.
I think that being on the Panthers is one thing that you don't want to look forward to, but I don't know how much this makes sense as far as how do I put this? I don't know if it makes sense as far as like his production was bad last year, and we'd have to go and kind of really deep dive into what he was asked to do. But I'd rather just see what you can get out of Bishop than bring a guy like Fuller in my opinion. It just doesn't really make sense to me. Like there's better options out there in the safety market.
Yep, totally agree. I also rather just draft somebody if we're being honest. All right,
Some
next
of the
up,
names we're going to talk about, like here's
like
another
this guy.
that kind of pops off the page a little bit, but he's up there in age, but still.
For sure. So Justin Simmons, 31 years old, 6'2", 202. He played on a bad Atlanta defense. I mean, they stunk.
Really bad.
And
Really bad.
he didn't play that bad. So, but I am interested to see like what does he have left? Does he want to come to a contender and play like, you know, an incentive deal, you know, like we talked about, battle it out for Bishop for a starting role or Rapp, see what the best fit is between those 3. I would totally be open to it. I just don't know what his idea of is. His market value is not that high. It's 1 year, 5.8 million according to Spot Track. And again, you could structure that with like incentives, not unlikely to be earned incentives based on his last year, you know, making the playoffs, winning your division, you know, going to the AFC Championship, Super Bowl, stuff like that, interceptions. There's definitely ways you could structure that deal. But as far as you want to bring in a guy who knows football and you can move him around and has played all over, he's that guy, man. And I love that idea. If you're gonna roll with Bishop, I think, you know, as wanting to move him around, I think Simmons gives you a nice floor to pair with Rapp.
Yeah, I'm on board there. I think of the guys we have on our list as far as age, player profile, versatility, if Bishop is not ready, like this is the guy I would probably go try and get. He's probably going to want more money than that. He kind of showed that last year and didn't get it and then went to a bad defense. Does he try that again? I don't know. But this is the guy I would go get. I mean, 31 years old, maybe you bring him in for 1, 2.
I just
maybe
don't
like
think
a
his
one-
market's there. Like he got
Yeah,
seven and
like
a half
maybe-
million last year. I don't think he's going to get more based on, you know, what he
Exactly,
did this
but
year. So,
I
but
think
what he
he's a
does
guy
do
who-
too, what he does do too, and this is interesting. I want to get your take on this. Is
Yeah.
his versatility. You can play
Right.
him as a
Yeah,
deep
you can put him
safety,
anywhere.
and then you can have Rapp come down low. I think pairing him with Rapp gives you the ability to have like a Poyer and Hyde. I married the two together because I'm so used
Poyd.
to saying them together. But I think it gives you the ability to use them like that, really disguise coverages, really move guys around. You don't know who's going to be the deep guy, who's going to come up, who's going to go where. I think he gives you that ability, and that's why I really like it. And then it lets you use Bishop however, you know, as your dime, you know, guy, as your nickel, you know, coming in, have him be a matchup piece against certain looks. I really like him for that reason. Again, it comes down to your point though, like what does he want? You know, what does he
Right,
want?
like,
Or does he want a guaranteed starting role too? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like I don't know. It's like kind of like the Mike Edwards situation last year, right? Like they brought him in, they had the idea of what they wanted him to do, and then he didn't do it for XYZ reasons. I don't know how much we know about that situation, but I think Simmons is a much more talented player than Edwards, and he's much more versatile. So I think he's a good bridge piece for him and Bishop, and it gives you the versatility with honestly all three guys to do whatever you would want to do with them. And when you have really good safety play out of this defense, we've kind of seen what it is. It's a really good defense. Obviously, we've had issues getting over that hump. But I think it would be a good marry between Simmons and the Bills.
I agree. All right, next up, really interesting piece here. Some Bills fans might be familiar with this name, Andre Cisco. He played pretty close. 25 years old. Yep, 6 foot, 210 pounds. He's projected 1 year, 10.8 million. I'm guessing it was probably a multi-year deal here, not just a 1 year, 10.8 million.
Yeah.
But could you structure it with some outs? I'm not sure. Lots of potential in ball skills though with him. 5th in pass breakups. I'm not sure how he would fit though with Bishop and their plans going forward. But he's 52nd against the run, 68 in pass coverage out of 170 players. Limited snaps, though. He only had 10 games played in 2024. I love the idea of him playing. I just don't know what they want to do with him. And with Bishop, like I think they want to play. They would want to play Cisco like in the box and move him around and be a matchup piece. What do you think with Andre Cisco?
So Cisco, if the Bills wanted to go with a man-heavy defense, like this is the guy. I mean, the Jaguars' man defense was not great last year, but he's got a ton of experience playing man defense. The Jags, I think, were running top 5 most man coverage last year, and the Bills are kind of hinting towards playing a little bit more than that, or more man defense than they did in previous years.
Yeah, didn't the Bills just bring over his defensive coordinator?
Yeah,
as well to be a special assistant on defense. Yeah, Ryan Nielsen.
Yeah, so like familiarity with the scheme, the Bills want to run man defense, at least what they've shown. Good size, like willing tackler, gets up there, physical. The one thing we see here is like his age. He's going to be 25, which is great, but then it's like you got to pay him, and then you're kind of kicking Bishop either out of that role.
I think kind of what it is it's signaling you don't think Bishop is ready for a full-time role.
Right.
And so you're paying Cisco to be your starter and playmaker, and then Bishop's going to be your third guy, like we just talked about, that you move around, but that's a lot to commit to a guy when you have Bishop sitting there. So
yeah, I think this is kind of like the pipe dream guy, in my opinion. I think he would be a good mold for this defense, but I don't know how realistic it is at that salary.
I agree,
or projected salary.
All right, here's a guy I really like, Derek Forrest. 26 years old, 5'11", 200 pounds. He's the last guy we're going to cover in the safety group. 9.69 RAS score. He's got elite speed with good agility. 52nd against the run, 68 against the pass last year. I think he's the kind of guy you bring in as your safety 4 that can play special teams, and you just let him battle it out. And if he shows more, or you think you can do more with him, then he gets more playing time. Maybe he takes Cam Lewis's role more on defense. I don't know, but he at least gives you the high upside of his athleticism. And when he's played well. He's just had limited snaps. So is there more room there? Is there more in the tank for him? I'm definitely intrigued. I really like the idea of bringing him in if you love Bishop and Rapp. Like if that's your 2 starters and then you have Cam Lewis as your 3rd safety, this is the guy you bring in to be your 4th safety, special teamer with upside.
Yeah, I don't have too much to touch on that. I think you kind of nailed it. Is like he's your 3-4 guy. He didn't play a ton. He was with Washington all 4 years. He did play quite a bit in 2022 and 2023. 2022 he played 849 snaps. 2023 he played 328 snaps. So last year he kind of took a little bit of a back seat. I don't know how much of that has to do. I don't follow Washington super closely, but I don't know how much that had to do with the safeties they ended up bringing in or ended up drafting. But with that being said, like great corner or safety 3-4 kind of guy. But then you have to be confident with the guys ahead of him in Bishop and Rapp. Obviously, Rapp, mainly Bishop.
You're bringing him more to be your special teams
Yeah, he's your
safety
special
3,
teams
safety
guy.
4 for sure,
Yeah,
definitely.
he's a Cam Lewis type of guy, with
Right,
maybe less versatility.
right, right. Yep, and we said we wanted to get more athletic with speed, especially as a backup, special team role player. So yeah, if you really like Bishop and Rapp, this is the kind of guy you'd bring in. So. All right, well that covers it for safety. I like the idea of, if they can't get one of these guys because of cost, and who knows what prices will be. The safety market has been depressed, so you never know what the market's going to be, and if the Bills can snag one of these guys at a good deal. But I don't hate the idea of them drafting one of the young guys as well. If you want to know more about the draft eligible guys, we did an episode I think 2 weeks ago on safeties, so definitely check that out. We did a deep dive on the rookie class, but yeah, definitely interesting things. Here's an update again on where the Bills stand cap wise. This is the latest and the greatest. Again, there's a lot of ways for the Bills to make more cap space pretty easily, so don't take this as like, oh, the Bills only have $20 million to spend. They have a lot more if they want it. What are your thoughts for tomorrow? So tomorrow starts the legal tampering period at noon. What are your expectations? What are your thoughts? Is there anyone you really hope the Bills go after as we wrap up this episode?
As far as the current free agents that are out there, like there's not a ton of guys I think that should be a priority for this team. I think the priority right now is figuring out what you want to do with Benford. And maybe they don't do anything with him like we had mentioned earlier. And if that's the case, like you need to go get that corner. I don't think you want to pair him up with like a rookie on the other side of him, in my personal opinion. So corner is going to be intriguing to see what we do. The Bills have also not, at least remembering back to last year, I don't remember us being much of a big player in the early part of free agency. A lot of that has to do with their cap situation. The Bills are kind of the bargain bin team. They've always kind of been in that realm, kind of minus the Von Miller signing.
Part of that last year, though, was the cap situation. We were really strapped. But I do agree. Bean definitely likes the bargains. Some moves the Bills could make if they needed to create more space. Ed Oliver can restructure him and save almost $10 million. Deion Dawkins, they could save $8 million. Dawson Knox, you could see him taking another pay cut or restructure a little bit there. I don't think they want to kick money down the road, but they could restructure it as in he takes a pay cut and moves it to incentives or something like that. Those are the main ones. Connor McGovern, he could sign an extension and that would lower his cap hit. I would love to see that. They do those three moves, and you're looking at about $30 million the Bills could save pretty easily.
I have an interesting question for you though, but like,
go ahead.
What do we do with what are we doing with Matt Milano? $15 million cap hit, no guaranteed left. Like,
so he's a guy you could talk to about restructuring essentially is taking less as far as the cap, but moving it into incentives, maybe playing time incentive or a Pro Bowl incentive or interceptions or stuff like that. I definitely could see that with him. I'm not sure they want to kick more money down the road. They could do a conversion and do a bonus, and it would save them like $6.5 million. So it's possible, but I would imagine I think they want to get out of his contract in the next year or two. So I don't see them wanting to move money. It's more likely like Dawson Knox. I think between Knox and Milano, they could save $4 or $5 million just restructuring those guys.
And the other guy is Daquan. Like, does Daquan end up getting cut?
I think it depends on what we do in free agency. I think he could be a post June 1 cut. If depending on what they do in free agency, it doesn't really do anything for them to release him right now. They save like 1.8 million or whatever.
Sense to do it now. It's later down the road. Right,
it's something you do after the draft, after free agency. Yeah. And maybe the way the draft falls in free agency, the Bills are able to get like 2-1 techniques, and so Daquan becomes a luxury, and you post you.
Yeah, the Bills can post June 1 cap savings is per over the cap year 5.5 million in cap savings. That's only 3.9 in dead cap. So that's one way they can save money in the post June 1st cap or cut versus pre June 1st. You're looking at $1 million in savings. So it doesn't make sense.
Right.
At least not
Agree.
right now.
The other guy is David Edwards.
Yeah.
The Bills can do some things with David Edwards. They could cut him, save $4 million. That's if they like Alec Anderson or Grable or someone else stepping into play there and they want to get cheaper and more cost controlled. They could save $4 million there. I like David Edwards. He's only 28 years old. He's a good starter. He's not above average. He's not great. He's not above average, but he's quality starting left guard. Smart dude. And so they could even extend him too and lower that number as well. But then you're kind of creating a log jam for some of the guys they like in the pipeline. So he's an interesting one to watch. They could try to lower his number or they could cut him. I think they really like him. And he's a good fit on the team. He's a Cromer guy as well, coming over from the Rams. But again, they could save over $4 million by cutting David Edwards or trading him. He's a great trade candidate as well.
Yeah.
I'd
really be surprised if they did anything along the offensive line as far as moving starters in and out. Like
right.
Stability
But
last
last year
was great.
surprised us too, though. Moving, cutting Morris and moving McGovern over, and I think that surprised a lot of people too.
I think a lot of that had to do with like Morris's age and his contract, and it's like Edwards is not old, his contract's not terrible.
But the way it's structured is you were supposed to get out of it this year, though, is the problem.
That's true.
They left way too much money to be able to save.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And again, like if you could trade him for a quality early day 3 pick or something, a fifth or something. I think you'd have to do it and save $4 million. Are you crazy?
Yeah, and they re-signed Alec Anderson. They are not re-signed, but they paid Alec Anderson and they paid Van de Mark.
Right, so they have both of
clearly
them,
locking
and
up
then they
some
like
of these guys.
Grable. So, as far as guys I want, man, I really want them to address. I know it's a deep D line class, but man, I want everything going to the D line. I want
100%.
really revamped. I want bodies, and I don't want to go into the draft like needing 2 D tackles and 2 edges. Like I'd love to go into the draft just feeling like I need like one more piece along the D line or something, or maybe 2 pieces along the D line. So for me, it's. Can they get a one tech? Locked on Bills. Joe Moreno really likes Bobby Brown as an option. I like like BJ Hill, DJ Jones. I know Cover One really likes him.
Yep.
And so
those guys.
Yeah, there's guys out there, man. I'd love to up the one tech early down run stuffer, and then maybe you have Daquan, take less snaps instead of 65 plus, be able to take 45 or 50 and do more pass rushing maybe or something like that. I don't know. I just think they need more beef on the line early. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, the Bills, they don't need 1, they don't need 2. I think they need like 3 quality interior defensive players. Like
I agree, because they have Ed and Daquan, which
right. Like shout out Jordan Phillips, but you don't want to sign.
Please don't bring him back. And you don't know what you have in Carter, right? Like I don't think Dwayne Carter was like I don't think they hit on it yet. I don't think that he showed enough. Obviously, he had the wrist injury, and that really affects you as a defensive lineman. And also, defensive tackle has been a slow developing position, right? Guys don't always come in at defensive tackle and light the league on fire. Yeah. It can take them a year or 2 for sure to develop. Some guys do, but we've definitely seen D tackles take a little time. So maybe that's part of the Dwayne Carter thing. But man, I would not put any eggs in the basket. Like he's my D tackle 5 right now at best, and I'm loading up. So yeah, I want to see them get essentially. For me, I want them to get 4 new D tackles, man, and make Dwayne Carter your 5th, your 6th guy or whatever, right? No, because you got Ed, so it'd be 4 new guys, Ed, and then Dwayne Carter. But I don't think they're going to do that. So, but 3 is for sure realistic. And can they get 1 in free agency and then 2 in the draft? The draft is super deep on D tackle, and so I'm okay with them going young there. But
How
can they
concerned-
get it? Can they get a DJ Jones and then draft 2 D tackles? Would be great.
How concerned? I mean, obviously, I don't think the Bills have much of a choice, but like, how concerned are you with our history of lack of ability to go find a guy in free agency at the defensive tackle position?
I think part of that is like, again, money and not wanting to invest the capital, and so I'm wondering if maybe some of the influxes in the defensive room will help that. So some of the coaching changes. The assistant D line coach is going to be new. Nielsen coming in is new. Like, I'm hoping some of that will help influence the decisions. But yeah, man, they got to invest more and they got to pay more. And I keep saying, like, that's where I want them to invest this money. So if they spend $40 million, I want it to be all on the D line. I don't need you to spend money anywhere else, right? Like, we talked about guys that we liked for vet minimum or 2 million, 3 million here, like at corner, at wide receiver, at safety. Like, I'm okay spending less than $10 million at those 3 positions and bringing in 3 players and then spend the rest of the money on the D line. Like, they got to get bodies. They got to get more upside guys. They got to get difference makers on the D line. It doesn't have to be a dude, right? It doesn't have to be a Garrett, a Crosby, but you got to get guys that can make plays, and that's what we've been lacking. Is there's just not enough guys on the Bills' defensive line over the last 3 or 4 years that make plays when it matters, especially late in the season in the playoffs. They'll make some flashes early, but so for me, just take swings at quality guys that have shown that they can do it. It doesn't have to be top dollar, but they could go get a Josh Sweat. I'm fine paying him $20 million. That would be great, man. Like, get a Hassan Reddick at 10 million, whatever. I would love that. Like, there's guys out there you can get. The 49ers just let Malik Collins go. Like, bring him in as a D tackle that can pass rush. That's a way better Jordan Phillips replacement. And pay some money. I'm okay, man. The Bills have paid a lot of money on their D line. I just don't think they've allocated it well. This is their chance to reset and allocate it well. I mean, the Greg Rousseau signing, I think, helps that even more. Like, people were saying that that's going to limit what they're going to spend on the D line, and I would argue the opposite.
It's the other way.
Right, the way it's structured, his cap hits are low the first couple of years, and the deal's already way lower than I thought. I thought he was going to get more than $20 million a year. So I think that sets them up for flexibility and to spend more on the D line. And then we've already seen Ed Oliver's deal. It looks like a good deal, and he's got flexibility too. Like we just talked about, but you could restructure his deal to get even more money. So yeah, man, just that's what I want. I want invest in the D line, 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 man. And whether that's free agency or the draft, it doesn't matter to me, man. You could fill all your other holes and then just allocate your draft picks to the D line, because boy, are there a lot of options this year.
Yeah, I think if the Bills do make a move, which would be a little uncharacteristic early in free agency, it is the defensive line. I think that they can go after some of these guys at defensive tackle, but at the end of the day, you still need to fill an edge rusher role. They have to do it. Like there's three? I think there's 3 guys currently on the roster that are edge rushers: Solomon, Epinesa, and Groot. I don't know.
Yep. That's it. After they cut Vaughn,
anybody else after Vaughn got cut. So it's like you got to make moves somehow. They're not going to go into the year with 3 guys.
Right. Well, that's the same thing with the D tackle room too, right? They have 3. Yeah. So, Bean doesn't like to go into the draft with any empty holes. So, they might sign guys that are like camp bodies essentially, or to compete, but he doesn't like to go in with holes. So he's gonna make moves, guys. He's gonna sign people. How many spots do we count that he's got to fill? He's got to fill a safety spot. He's got to fill CB2 spot. He's got to fill a wide receiver spot, at least one, really 2. He's got to fill 2 wide receiver spots because I keep counting Mac. So that's 4. On the offensive side, he's got to fill. And then defense, he's got to fill, 2 DNs and probably 2 D tackles.
Yeah, 2 to 3
so
D tackles. Yeah.
So that's 8 to 9 bodies right there that they have to do essentially before the draft. So they're going to make moves. I think that's why you've seen him make all these moves early. A lot of these extensions were to get ahead of the market and to make it so he's available to go out and talk to guys and make deals. Like the Bills are going to make deals. The way McDermott and Bean have been talking to is They want to make moves on the D
Yeah.
line. They want to make moves.
I think the two positions that we could see them fill, 2.5, is defensive tackle, defensive end, and I think they've really been pushing towards that speed wide receiver, that field stretcher. And it could be somebody that we don't have on our radar. Like it could be
For
a
sure.
trade guy. It could be a
Well,
guy.
and that's why Metcalf made so much sense, right? As a
Right, it did.
specific need. Like he fit a very specific need.
Like the Chris Olave thing would be wild.
Oh God,
the
dude.
Bills have already shown like they will go trade for a elite wide receiver when they want to do it. They
He's
did it
so
with Diggs,
good, man.
right? And Olave, if he can stay on the field with the concussions, like he is. I don't know how many people are really familiar with his play, but like
High
he can do it
4-3
all.
guy, he gets open like crazy. Think about it. He's basically Garrett Wilson. You know, we're more familiar with Garrett Wilson. He's very similar to Garrett Wilson.
Not as lengthy as Wilson. It's not as long, but
But gets open,
good separator, can stretch
speed.
the field, over the middle, on the outside, along the numbers. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and you got to remember he'll be going into the 4th year of his deal, so his base salary is 1.1 million. Like he's going to cost, and then you have a club option, you have a 5th-year option. So I don't know if they've picked that up or not, but
do the extension basically.
Right. But. So it'll cost an asset. You know, probably a 2nd-round pick, I would guess. Maybe a first, but probably like a 2nd-round pick.
Could be like a 2nd and like a 5th or something along those lines. Something in that realm.
Yeah. We'll give him a Kair and a 2nd or something.
They can, maybe we can.
That would save us more money, man. But he's 6'1", 187. You know, he'd be perfect, dude. He'd be perfect. So, but that's a pipe dream.
The Saints didn't really use him to what in any way that the Bills would use him. Like the Saints,
he wasn't a good fit for Carr for sure.
No, the Saints had a field stretcher. Like they used him as like this intermediate, in between the numbers slot guy, or in breaking routes. Like,
and he was still top 20 in overall and receiving grade.
Yeah,
you know, he's really sure-handed. Only had 1 drop. So there's guys out there. That's obviously a pipe dream, but there's guys out there. I think they want to make a move. I think what we're trying to say is, you know, don't be surprised by anything they do. I think, you know, they're active. They want to do something, but it takes 2 to tango, man. And that's part of the DK Metcalf thing. That's part of the Myles Garrett thing. That's part of the Max Crosby thing. Like, yeah, you can want to make a deal. You can have a great offer out there, right? Like, they could have been ready to accept it, but you know, Garrett, you know, wanted to get paid and wanted to stay there. Like, that's fine. Crosby wanted to stay there. Like, you know, again, it takes 2 to tango. You need the other side to want to, you know, make the trade.
I want to touch on the Garrett thing. I was thinking about this earlier. Is like, if you're the Browns and you're a Browns fan, I feel like I would be disappointed that they didn't trade Garrett. Like, you have a prime opportunity to trade a really high value asset and get pretty much anything you want for him, and really set your team up for the future. And instead you pay him $40 million a year.
No, I think that's perfect. I agree with you. I'm almost mad if I'm a Browns fan because like you're not prepared. You're not ready to win. You're not set up to win right now. That roster has a lot of issues. Like, I don't think people realize, like, 2-3 years ago, they were one of the best rosters in football, top 2 or 3. They're far from that. Their O-line is a mess. They got to figure out what to do with guys like Miles Teller. Is Jack Conklin going to play? Like, Antonio, like, they've had a lot of turnover there. The defense is nowhere near what it was. We saw that last year. It started to deteriorate. It's breaking down. They can't pay guys. They got to figure out their corners.
Quarterback is a
man.
disaster for them. Like,
so they're in cap hell, man. They just had to restructure Watson again. His cap hit next year is like $80 million or something, man. So they're in big trouble. They're not prepared to win for at least the next 2 years. And so, why would I want my team to lock up all that money in Myles Garrett, who's already 30? Like, he's going to be 35 by the end of that deal. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And so I would have wanted, all the draft capital. Man, you tell me you're going to give me 2 first-round picks, you know, and maybe something else or a middle pick, like, and I could have reset Yeah, man, I'll take that all day. And that's kind of my position with the Cowboys. Like, if I had the argument last offseason with Cowboys fans we were in a spaces on Twitter. There was a couple hundred people in there or whatever. And we were having that discussion. And the topic was, would you rather trade Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons? Would you rather trade Micah Parsons or commit to Dak Prescott? You couldn't keep both. And so they were all arguing that you trade Micah Parsons and get the draft capital. And I was against that. I'm like, it's so hard to get a difference maker on the D line. There's really only less than 5 of them in football that really make a difference on the D line, like to that magnitude. And like, I'm not trading him for anything, man. Dak, see you later, dude. I'm getting rid of Dak all day, man. And so I'm on the other side of it here. Like, see you, Myles Garrett. Like, get out of here. Like, if you're not ready to win, like now, then get out of here. And from the Raiders' perspective, with Max Crosby, I do understand that he's 28. Like, he's not over 30. Like, you got another 2+ years of him in that age. Like, I think you're trying to sell your fan base that you're trying to win instead of tank. He is a Raider. He wants to be a Raider. I think that deal made a lot more sense to me and keeping him than it did with the Browns. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you think between those two?
I also think that the second Pete Carroll was higher than Matt Crosby was off the table. Like, Pete Carroll's not going.
Yeah, you saw that with the Stafford move, right? With trying to trade for Stafford.
Like, there's no reason Carroll's going there to just rebuild an entire team. He's the oldest coach in football right now. I think he was when he retired, took a year off or whatever it was, and he's back to being it again. Garrett is the same. It's kind of the opposite situation, like you said. It's like I would like to hear from a Browns fan on that whole situation, because I feel like I'd be disappointed. It would be like I don't know, because the Bills haven't been in that situation in like 8 or 9 years. But it kind of felt like when we signed Marcel Darius or Mario Williams, it was just kind of like, why are you spending money on these guys?
Boy, was that fun though. The cold front, man.
The cold front was wild. Like the Rex Ryan days with
so
who was the defensive coordinator back then? The guy from the Lions. He was with the Lions for a couple of years.
I thought it was Schwartz.
Yeah, Jim Schwartz.
Yeah.
That's who it was. Yeah, so Schwartz was, man, that cold front.
What, now in the Browns?
Yeah, he's...
Yeah, dude, they were unreal. They had what, 4 players over 10 sacks?
Yeah, that was... Could you imagine that?
Hughes, Mario Williams,
that
Kyle
production
Williams,
from the D-line. That production on the D-line with this team.
Well, it's basically what the Eagles did, right? That was basically what the Eagles did this year. So
yeah, that's
what we're hoping they could do, man. But you gotta get a lot of pieces, a lot of depth, man, and you gotta hit. We'll see. All right, so next up on the calendar is, like we were talking about, is tomorrow, noon Eastern, is the legal tampering period. They're already tampering, man. Don't fool yourself. Everyone's already tampering. You'll just start hearing all the deals leak afternoon. Like, watch, 12:01. You're going to see a bunch of deals leaked. And yeah, you mean to tell me in 20 seconds you had these deals figured out? Like, okay. But from 12 Eastern tomorrow until Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern is the legal tampering period. 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, March 12th is the start of the league year. That's when the free agents can officially sign. That's when these trades become actually official, is Wednesday after 4 p.m. So a lot of excitement tomorrow all the way through Wednesday and really for the next couple weeks. After that is the March 30th, the end of the month, is the annual league meetings in Palm Beach. That goes through April 2nd, and that's where the rules stuff's going to change. They're going to talk about some of the rules and special teams, the kickoff, and we'll see what rules or changes they make, but that's going to be the end of the month. Usually it comes out then, and usually there's some trade discussion in there too, and some stuff happens during the league meetings. But those are the next 2 major things that are coming up on the calendar. For us as a network, make sure you check us out on social media and YouTube. I think we're going to do a live show tomorrow when free agency kicks off, a little free agency frenzy. So definitely check us out. I think Matt Diger and someone else will do that show tomorrow. Please make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube, on X. Please subscribe to Do Champion social media. My social media at JakeFBData. And then Donnie's at DoDon8. Don't forget the 8, please. At DoDon8. Check them out. We will do a quick word from our sponsors, and then we will do some closing remarks and then get out of here.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sports book of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, so closing comments here. I'm just interested to see money. I want to see money on these free agency moves because for me, I think, thanks, Kevin. Everyone follow Kevin's lead, but I think there's some position groups here that are very thin, like interior linebacker, tight end, even running back are all thin, and it's places where the Bills don't necessarily need a guy. And then there's really deep positions like, edge, D tackle, safety. They're really deep. Corner is actually really deep too. And so I want to see like who's left without a chair. Like where's the money going to fall? Like you said, maybe not the initial wave. Like don't freak out if the Bills don't make a deal on the initial wave. Bean's done a really good job on hitting some of the guys a little later. Like you think of like a Leonard Floyd, for example, like, the later hit
Cole
guys
Beasley.
like Cole Beasley. Yeah. Another one. Good
John
call
Brown.
out. So John Brown. And so there's going to be guys like that. It's the safety market for sure. Already depressed market. It's going to be depressed. The corner market, I'm really interested to watch. And the D tackles, like what are some of these guys going to get? So the top guys are going to get paid, man. But that second tier and those rotational guys are going to be really interesting. So I'm definitely looking out for that. You got anything closing, Marks?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to go. I think we go bargain bin on some of the positions that we need to fill. But I think it's late.
Yeah.
I don't think it's this first wave. Like linebacker, Specters can't stay on the field. Like they might try to fill that role and just cut him. They got to fill the tight end 3 role. They didn't bring back Morris. Yeah, they can.
I think that's interesting too. Like, what happens to Ty Johnson? What happens to Matt Collins? What happens to Morris? Those are the 3. Yep. They're testing the market for a reason, right? We would have re-signed them already, so maybe they wanted to test the market, which is fine. We'll see what happens. Based on that, though, those are roles that you got to fill. All 3 of those guys play important roles that have to be filled.
The one thing I think you don't need to look forward to, because I don't think anything is going to happen, is I don't think the Bills are doing anything besides potentially restructuring David Edwards. Like the offensive line is going to stay where it's at.
Right.
They're not going to make any moves. The interesting one as well will be backup quarterback. Like there's kind of still a void there. Probably a late, middle of the offseason kind of move, but that's something to keep an eye out for. They haven't really decided what they want to do at that role. But the things that I want to just take a look at are what are they going to do at safety? If they don't do anything at all, probably going to start leaning more towards Taylor Rapp and Bishop starting. And if they make a move before the draft, like you're probably going to expect what we had talked about with Bishop kind of floating around in the box a little bit. Filling a void.
I'm really interested at safety, man. There's a lot of guys we didn't talk about because I think they're just going to get paid too much or they weren't good fits. But some of the names you're going to see are Javon Holland, Hufanga from the 49ers, Tyrone Matthew, Cam Bynum, Justin Reed, Harrison Smith. Elijah Mold. We didn't talk about any of those guys, and those guys are all starters that have the potential to get paid. So we'll see what happens with that market. Yeah, Andre Cisco we talked about though. We really like him. It just I want to know what happens to the market. I think he's going to be too expensive. But there's a lot of names on the safety market, and it was already really depressed last year, like you said, Don. Guys did not get the money they wanted. It's really been the last 2 years. So who's going to be left without a chair? Can the Bills entice someone to come in? I don't know, but it'll tell us a lot about how much they love Cole Bishop.
Yeah, I think that money kind of floats around between different positions. Like it was originally the running backs a couple of years ago, like they just weren't getting paid. And now teams are paying running backs, and it's kind of been taken away from the safeties. A lot of it's been allocated to quarterbacks and wide receivers. Before the running backs, the wide receivers weren't getting paid. So I think that all kind of just floats around with whatever the new trendy thing to do in the league is. With a lot of teams kind of sitting in that cover 2 shell defense, it's kind of trending a little bit away from that now. But that's kind of why safeties weren't getting paid as much. You weren't really asking them to do as much. But we'll kind of see if that takes a turn this offseason. I think no matter what we do, we have to look forward to what the Bills are doing on the defensive line, from edge rusher, whether it's a trade or signing guys, to interior defensive linemen. Those are the 2 things I think you have to look forward to. It really doesn't matter what we do at cornerback 2. It doesn't matter what we do at safety. Like we've filled those voids. We've had good players there. They have to figure out the defensive line situation, and they're not going to go into it with 5 total guys or 6 total guys on the defensive line into the draft. So they're going to make moves.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, we talked about that, no bones yet. I think it really just depends on how the chairs fall and what's up, but I'm not sure the Bills are going to commit that much to a safety. I think other needs are more pressing, especially on the defensive line, but we'll see. That'll make it exciting, but thanks everyone for watching tonight. Definitely tune in tomorrow. We'll have tons of stuff on our social medias. Don will be pumping out all the news and graphics as it comes in, and thanks for tuning in. Check out next Sunday night. I'll be doing a recap of the moves and a deep dive into any of the guys we're not familiar with, maybe some tape study, and then we'll start getting into draft prep, and I'll start going into more draft stuff, and we'll go into there and start prepping for the next thing. So thanks again tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Come on, man. Only on Do Champion Network.
Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Check pen in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need. Everything you need. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Some may like if you just won't. Buffalo blueprint for analytics and new shit. Check pen in hand, mic in his hand. Welcome to the Buffalo blueprint. Everything you need.